Hello everyone, Raises here, and today I'll be reading 6 unbelievable stories that actually happened. I'll also be doing some work in my Minecraft world, and I'm planning a small mining session, and I also want to discover some new areas along the way. So if you're studying, trying to sleep, or just here to relax with some Minecraft and stories, get comfortable, get cozy, and let's begin. A 28-year-old man from Russia named Artyom Sidorkin began having severe chest pain. At first, he tried to ignore it. He assumed it was something minor and that it would pass on its own. But the pain didn't go away. Instead, it got worse. Soon, he was having trouble standing upright. Then, he started coughing blood. That's when Artyom went to the hospital. When doctors first saw him, they immediately knew something was wrong. He looked pale, weak, and visibly unwell. Even before running any tests, they suspected the problem was serious. After speaking with Artyom and hearing about his symptoms, doctors believed he might have a tumor growing in his lungs. To confirm their suspicion, they ordered an X-ray. When the results came back, the radiologist saw what looked like a mass inside Artyom's lung. This seemed to confirm the worst-case scenario. Doctors told Artyom they needed to investigate further. But before removing any large portion of his lung, they wanted to do a biopsy. The plan was to remove a small piece of the tissue and test it to see if it was cancer. Artyom was terrified, but he agreed. A few days later, he was brought in for the procedure. During the surgery, the doctors removed a piece of lung tissue and placed it on a tray. As the surgeon examined it, something caught his eyes. There was something inside the tissue. It looked as if the lung had grown around an object, almost like the tissue was wrapped around something hidden inside it. So the doctors carefully opened the tissue, and inside they found something no one was expecting. Growing out of Artyom's lung was a small fir tree. It was green, it was alive, and it was about 5 centimeters long. Doctors believe Artyom has accidentally inhaled a fir tree seed at some point in his life. The seed became lodged inside his lung, where the warm and damp environment allowed it to germinate. As the tree grew bigger, its needles began piercing small blood vessels in his lungs. That's what caused the chest pain and the coughing up blood. After the discovery, a spokesperson from the Royal Botanic Gardens in London explained that while it's technically possible for a seed to grow inside the human lung, it is extremely rare and highly unusual. When doctors told Artyom that he didn't have cancer, but instead had a tree growing inside him, he was completely shocked. But he was also relieved. He said he never suspected anything like that was happening inside his body. More than anything, he felt happy. Really quick, if you like this type of content and you want to see more, please make sure to subscribe and leave a like. This helps me a lot, and let's continue. In 2013, a 46-year-old man named Paul Baxter began feeling sick. At first, it didn't seem serious. He thought he had caught a cold or some kind of mild infection, but after a few days, he developed a harsh cough. The coughing fits became so intense that he could barely speak without breaking into another coughing spell. Eventually, Paul went to see his doctor. After examining him, the doctor diagnosed Paul with pneumonia and put him on a treatment plan. Paul followed the instructions carefully and expected to feel better soon. But weeks passed and nothing changed. Then months passed and Paul still wasn't improving. Because the treatment wasn't working, Paul's doctor referred him to a respiratory clinic for further testing. At the clinic, doctors took an X-ray of his chest. When they reviewed the image, they noticed something unusual. There was a dark shadow in the lower right section of Paul's lung. Given the fact that Paul has been a long-term smoker, doctors became concerned. But before moving forward with any major surgery, they decided to take a closer look. They scheduled a procedure where a thin probe with a camera on the end would be inserted into Paul's lungs while he remained awake. During the procedure, the doctors guided the probe towards the shadowed area. Almost immediately, he saw a lump. When he zoomed in closer, he noticed something very strange. There was something orange sticking out of it. The doctor told Paul what he was seeing and explained that he would try to remove the surrounding tissue to get a better look. If it turned out to be a foreign object, he would attempt to remove it. But no matter how carefully he tried, the object wouldn't come loose. Eventually, the doctor pulled the probe out and told Paul he would need to come back in a few days so they could try again using a longer and more powerful probe. Paul asked what the object was, and the doctor was honest. He said he didn't know, only that it didn't belong there. A few days later, Paul returned for the second procedure. This time, the doctor was able to dislodge the object. As it was pulled free, everyone in the room watched the live camera feed. They could now see the object clearly. It was small, orange, and triangular. When the pincers finally came out of Paul's mouth, the doctors saw what they were holding. It was a small plastic traffic cone from a child's toy set. As soon as Paul saw it, a memory came rushing back. He told the doctors that when he was 7 years old, he remembered swallowing something that looked exactly like that. Except, he hadn't swallowed it. He had inhaled it. Somehow, the toy traffic cone had remained inside Paul's lung for more than 40 years without causing any noticeable symptoms, until now. Paul later said there was a moment of silence in the room. Then everyone started laughing. None of the doctors had ever seen anything like this before. Paul was allowed to keep the traffic cone. But more importantly, after the procedure, his cough went away and he made a full recovery. In 2010, a 19-year-old Australian man named Sam Ballard was hanging out with his friends at a party. It was a normal night. People were joking around, talking, and drinking. At some point, someone noticed a slug crawling nearby. It became a joke. When someone pointed it out, everyone started laughing. Then, someone at the party dared Sam to eat it. At first, Sam didn't take it seriously. He laughed it off because it just sounded ridiculous. But the more it was brought up, the more it became a challenge. Eventually, Sam decided to do it. He picked up the slug and he swallowed it. The moment passed almost immediately. The party continued and no one thought it mattered. It was just a stupid dare anyways. Not long after the night, Sam began feeling unwell. At first, the symptoms were vague. He felt weak, he felt tired, and he didn't feel like himself. But as time went on, things didn't improve. They slowly got worse. Eventually, Sam's condition became serious enough that he was taken to the hospital. Doctors ran tests trying to figure out what was wrong. As the results came back, they realized they were dealing with something extremely rare. Sam had contracted a rat lungworm disease. The parasite had entered his body when he swallowed a slug. From there, it traveled through his system and eventually reached his brain. Sam developed a severe form of meningitis. His condition deteriorated quickly. He became critically ill. Soon after, Sam slipped into a coma. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and Sam remained in a coma for over a year. When Sam finally woke up, his family was relieved, but they quickly realized his life had changed forever. Sam became paralyzed. He could no longer walk, he could no longer take care of himself. Despite this, he was fully conscious. Mentally, he was still there. He could understand everything that was happening around him. From that point on, Sam required constant care. His family supported him every day, helping him with even the most basic tasks. Simple things he used to do without thinking, now required assistance. For years, Sam lived with the consequences of that single moment at that party. One dare, one decision. In 2018, 8 years after swallowing the slug, Sam Ballard passed away. He was 28 years old, and the doctors later explained that rat lungworm disease is extremely rare. But when it does infect humans, the effects can be devastating. In Sam's case, a single moment permanently altered the course of his life. In September of 2006, a woman named Suzanne Kornhausen was living alone in her home in Portland, Oregon. Suzanne worked as an emergency room nurse. She was experienced, calm under pressure, and used to dealing with life or death situations. Around this time, she was also in the middle of a bitter divorce from her husband. Despite the tension in her personal life, Suzanne continued going about her normal routine. One night, Suzanne returned home after work. As soon as she stepped inside her house, a man suddenly appeared. Without saying a word, he attacked her. The man grabbed Suzanne and began strangling her with his hands. The attack was immediate and violent. Suzanne fought back, struggling to break free, but the man was larger and stronger. As an ER nurse, Suzanne understood exactly what was happening to her body. She knew that if the pressure on her neck continued, she would lose consciousness, and once that happens, she will die. Suzanne managed to break free just long enough to knock the man off balance, but the attack didn't stop. The man recovered quickly and continued trying to kill her. At one point, he wrapped a cord around Suzanne's neck and began strangling her again. Suzanne could feel herself growing weaker. Her vision started to narrow, and she knew she was running out of time. Using everything she had left, Suzanne fought back with full force. The struggle moved across the room as she tried to create space and stay conscious. Despite being overpowered, she refused to stop fighting. Eventually, Suzanne gained control. She grabbed the cord from the man's hands and turned it against him. She continued until the man stopped moving. When the fight was over, the man was dead, and Suzanne immediately called 911. Police arrived at the house and found the man's body inside. At first, investigators weren't sure what had happened, but Suzanne calmly explained the entire attack step by step. As police continued their investigations, the truth came out. The man who attacked Suzanne was a hired killer. He had been paid to murder her. Investigators tracked the plot back to Suzanne's husband. During the divorce, he had arranged for that man to break into her home and kill her. Authorities determined that Suzanne had acted entirely in self-defense. She was not charged with any crime, and instead, her case became an example of survival against overwhelming odds. Suzanne later explained that her medical training helped her stay focused and understand how close she was to death, and exactly why she had to keep fighting. And just because she didn't give up, she is now alive. In the early 20s, an elderly man was shopping inside the Jusco supermarket in Japan. While he was inside the store, employees accused him of shoplifting. The man denied it. He insisted he hadn't taken anything. Despite this, store staff restrained him. They forced him to the ground and held him there while they were waiting for authorities to arrive. As the man was being restrained, he became visibly distressed. He struggled, his breathing became labored, and not long after, the man collapsed. Emergency services were called, but by the time they arrived, he was already dead. News of the incident spread quickly. Many people believed the store employees had used excessive force and blamed them for the man's death. And that's why an official investigation was launched. As part of the investigation, police reviewed the store's surveillance footage. That's when they noticed something unusual. Earlier that day, before the man was accused, a woman carrying a baby had entered the store. She appeared to be behaving strangely. She lingered near the elderly man and repeatedly positioned herself close to him. At one point, she appeared to place something near him. Not long after the interaction, store employees confronted the man and accused him of theft. However, when investigators reviewed the footage carefully, they found no clear evidence that the man had actually stolen anything. Police began to suspect that the woman with the baby may have intentionally planted stolen items near the man, setting him up to be falsely accused. They believed she may have deliberately provoked the situation. So investigators tried to identify her. They reviewed every camera angle, they checked nearby stores, and they questioned witnesses. But the woman was never found. She completely vanished without leaving a single trace. At one point, police released a single still image taken from the CCTV footage. The image showed parts of the woman's face, but authorities stated that the image was disturbing enough that they chose not to widely circulate it. The unidentified woman became known as Jusco Phantom. To this day, no one knows who she was, no one knows why she targeted that elderly man, and no one knows where she disappeared. The investigation eventually conducted that the man died due to stress and physical restraint. The store faced intense criticism, but the woman who may have triggered the entire incident was never located. One ordinary trip to a grocery store ended in a man's death and a mystery that has never been solved. In 2013, a man named Jim Stoffer was living in Arizona with his wife, Doris. Doris had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. As her condition worsened, the couple made an important decision together. Doris wanted to donate her body to science after she passed away, believing it could help medical researchers and benefit others. Her husband Jim completely supported her decision. When Doris died, Jim contacted a company called the Biological Resource Center, a body donation facility based in Arizona. The company assured him that Doris's remains would be treated with dignity and used only for legitimate scientific research. Jim trusted them. After the donation, Jim was told that Doris's body had been cremated. Sometime later, he received her ashes in the mail. Believing everything had been handled properly, Jim mourned his wife and tried to move on. For years, he had no reason to think anything was wrong. Then, in 2014, the FBI raided Biological Resource Center. What investigators found inside shocked everyone. Instead of respectfully handling donated bodies, the faculty had been dismembering them and selling the parts to various buyers. Heads, arms, legs, and torsos were separated and stored in freezers. Some remains were stacked on shelves. Others were improperly labeled or mixed together. During the investigation, Jim learned something horrifying. Doris's body had never been used for medical research as promised. Instead, parts of her body had been sold. One of the most disturbing discoveries was that Doris's body had been used in military testing. Her remains were sold to the US Army, where they were used in blast experiments designed to study the effect of explosions. The ashes Jim had received were not fully his wife's remains. They were only from her hand. Jim was devastated. The woman he loved and trusted to be treated with respect had been reduced to parts and sold without consent. Further investigation revealed that the Biological Resource Center had been operating this way for years. Donors' families were misled, and bodies were sold for profit under the disguise of scientific donations. Eventually, the owner of the facility was charged and sentenced for illegal handling of human remains. But for Jim, the damage has already been done. Doris had wanted to help science. Instead, her body became part of a scandal that exposed one of the darkest abuses of trust in the medical donation system. And what Jim and his wife thought was an act of generosity turned into a nightmare. And once he learned the truth, there was no way to undo it. So that's it for today, guys. Those were the 6 stories that sound unbelievable but are actually true. If you made it this far into the video, I really appreciate you for watching, and if you enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. And if you want more stories like these, you can click right here to check out another video, and I'll see you soon next time.